Can we expand our French city around our massive roundabout without clogging the streets with traffic? We are building a Parisian-themed city using L'Étoile as our centerpiece. This is the 12th Avenue roundabout in Paris that is home to the Arc de Triomphe. In the first episode, we created the central roundabout, the basic road layout, and added more than 11,000 residents. This initial build really put our recreation of L'Étoile, which translates as the star, to the test. In this episode, we are going to see a population explosion, bringing the total to 30,000 residents. This rapid growth will strain our roundabout, boulevards, and narrow alleys. To manage it, we will focus on citizen flow, add new arterials, and build our first bus network. We are also going to think about city design, adding small details like pedestrian plazas. My name is College Builder, and this is episode 2 of my French build, Ile du Carrefour. It would mean a lot to me if you liked the video, left a comment, and subscribed. Our first step will be to continue our expansion of Ile du Carrefour, which translates as Crossroads Island. We will build a bypass around the neighborhood, providing a new connection so traffic can avoid the central roundabout. This will help considerably with our traffic management, as vehicles will have multiple options to traverse the city. But we must continue to closely examine intersections that get backed up. Sometimes we will use the traffic light enhancement mod to create split phasing. Some smaller roads should be upgraded to create better turning lanes. We should also remove unnecessary crosswalks that force cars to stop. A check of our happiness meter tells us that our citizens are mostly okay, but let's keep an eye on this. In the previous episode, we built part of an arrondissement, which is French for borough. Today, we will finish this arrondissement and build an entirely new one. We used the wide avenues radiating from the central roundabout as collectors, and then created small neighborhood roads and alleys inside the borough as local streets. We will continue that pattern here, building medium-density residential and low-rent residential on the small alleys, and placing mixed-use and office zones on the roads and boulevards. Commercial and office buildings generate more noise, so our goal is to keep those structures on busier roads and leave the residential-only buildings on the smaller streets. We primarily place buildings with anarchy on, letting the buildings overlap to create the impression of wall-to-wall buildings. Right now, we will not worry about detailing, services, or leisure. More of that is to come. We will just plop as many buildings as possible to continue our rapid expansion and finish this arrondissement. As we approach intersections, we must find creative ways to place buildings. In some cases, a 90-degree corner building fits perfectly. In other cases, we must slide together buildings of different sizes to create the impression of a single structure that was made to fit that unique shape. It now appears that we have completed this arrondissement and we are ready to move on to the next section. With rapid growth comes new pain points for our drivers. All these vehicles are wearing down the roads and creating traffic backups. This is very apparent at the smaller roundabout at the opposite end of the Champs-Élysées. We will make the small roundabout one way, which should help with the traffic flow. Using the traffic mod, we can eliminate unnecessary U-turns and unsafe turns. We have quickly grown to over 14,000 citizens, and it is time to start our next arrondissement. We will fill in our road structure using the large avenues to surround this new neighborhood. We will create a unique setup for the inner portion, using a small roundabout for a future neighborhood plaza. Roads with sidewalks will form the basic structure, and then alleys will create additional connections. Unfortunately, our traffic is hitting a standstill on the central roundabout. We can address this by looking at the spots where it's getting clogged up. This place needs a traffic light with split phasing to help prevent cars from turning in front of each other. Some roads coming out of the roundabout still need to be widened to 4-lane avenues. We also want to ensure that we have dedicated turning lanes into and out of the roundabout to avoid unnecessary traffic delays. While we are at it, let's look at the major intersections on the avenues surrounding our new neighborhood. All of this will help improve citizen flow. Using the movement mod, let's adjust some of these intersections to allow for smoother turning. We will add another elementary school and then continue placing our mixed-use buildings. By making minor adjustments, we can fit them against the curved road. But notice all the traffic notification icons popping up and the cars backing up on the streets. We are getting to the point where we need to do something more significant. We currently have only 2 arterials, but adding one more would improve the situation. We will extend our central east-west access towards one of the existing highways. We are playing on the beautiful Nantes map created by Mr. Miyagi. This map is the official map for the French region PAC. We started this build by connecting to the national highway closest to the river. Now we will build a 3-leg directional interchange to connect our arterial to the large highway. This new arterial will bring traffic from the opposite side and provide vehicles with more options. I think this new interchange will help significantly as we fill in the new arrondissement. We will add the Cabaret Music Hall's signature building to increase citywide entertainment and well-being. Offices and mixed-use zones will give us more jobs for the many citizens moving to Ile-de-Carrefour. These buildings will bring more citizens, cars, and traffic buildup. Our challenge is determining whether the central roundabout can handle many people flocking to our city. Our roads are in place in the new arrondissement, and we've reduced traffic, so let's assess what we need to add another 15,000 people. A quick look at our data tells us that we lack entertainment. To pack people in, we must ensure they are happy and have plenty of leisure activities. As we build, we need to examine each corner of the arrondissement and determine which parts are well covered by leisure and which are lacking. I like to approach each block and section differently to make something unique and with character. Creating districts with the district tool will help us better track the happiness of our citizens. Let's call this new neighborhood our first arrondissement. We can then call the one we have already built our second arrondissement. Our data shows that the second arrondissement lacks entertainment, and the information view of leisure helps us see street by street where the greatest need is. The new pocket parks that came with Detailers Patch number 2 are perfect to add to small spaces. Adding some benches near intersections and extending the surfaces makes small plazas that blend naturally into the surroundings. Of course, when the parks are so small and the population so dense, the impact of the entertainment doesn't extend very far. Benches and tables create the feeling of a street cafe culture. Let's continue using our information overlay to find small places for the pocket parks. Each one that we add provides neighborhood character and a little detail. Our city, Ile-de-Carrefour, values walkability, just like Paris does. Some of these irregular corners near intersections are the best spots for little parks, even if you have to use Anarchy and the Movement mod to squeeze them in. I love the tiled surfaces as they add a subtle Parisian style that stands out more than the plain concrete sidewalks. Our data shows that we still need more entertainment, so let's continue this process section by section, identifying the area of greatest need. Part of what I love about Paris is the many small plazas and parks where you can sit while walking around the city. Paris feels like a city that was made for walking, and we want to capture that here. Let's use even the tiniest of spaces so we can squeeze in a few more parks. We've made significant progress, and the data overlay shows the extent of our coverage. Of course, we are not done with leisure or citizen happiness. We will continue to monitor this closely as we fill in this arrondissement, thinking about the well-being of our residents and what will have the most significant impact on our tourist demand. With nearly 17,000 residents, it is time to continue our rapid expansion. We will better monitor entertainment levels as we build, incorporating parks and plazas into the fabric of our blocks. For example, let's add a park that cuts through our wall-to-wall buildings next to our police headquarters. This provides a plaza next to what is otherwise a sizable administrative space. By removing the surfaces, we can add our own custom surface to provide some unique charm. These small aesthetic details reveal layers of history in our city. For much of this episode, we will experiment with various surfaces in different parts to see what works well with our Parisian buildings. We will really have fun with surfaces once we get to the Champs-Élysées in a future episode. Although Parisian sidewalks are typically smooth, you should not be surprised to find cobblestone or other materials around historic sites. This block by the cabaret is too big, so let's add a new alley to cut through it. The small plaza from the base game will provide significant leisure. With a better bulldozer mod, we can delete the fence around it and extend the pedestrian walkways using anarchy. We now have what we need in this area to continue plopping buildings and adding as many citizens as possible. Our primary strategy for adding density is to select buildings that will fill the space completely while also ensuring we keep variety in the buildings. So, for example, we should avoid placing two of the same building next to each other or even too closely together. The exception would be if we place different levels of the same building, say level 1 and level 5, which might look quite different. However, even in that case, I sometimes find the similarities too much and prefer to keep them further apart. In addition to tracking entertainment, we need to monitor our education services. In doing so, we will notice that we are behind on our elementary school needs. Let's replace the French Asset Pack Elementary School with the larger one from the German Asset Pack. Both have a distinctive red-orange roof, but the German one has a larger capacity. In general, we should have a mix of the gray roof buildings and the orange roof ones. This adds visual variety and keeps our city from looking too repetitive. Now, with 20,000 residents, I want to focus on the idea of a tiny neighborhood plaza. We will create our tiny plaza with a square pocket park from Detailer's Patch number 2. We will surround the plaza with the one-way pedestrian road. The challenge will be surrounding the small plaza with buildings, making it appear natural despite the tricky angles. We will keep the profile of the buildings low and use only medium-density residential. This should feel like a quiet neighborhood plaza for the residents and not a busy commercial square. We can then delete the default surfaces and replace them with a brick and cobblestone. We will place flower planters with the line tool to clearly show where vehicles can and can't drive. Small trees help us add the finishing touches. We can now start to surround this tiny plaza with other buildings, making it appear to be a hidden gem within a much denser area. By creating unique features in each neighborhood, we can enhance the aesthetic charm of our city and provide variety. Paris is filled with tiny plazas like this. Some are quiet and residential, and others are boisterous and filled with tourists. City Skylines 2 would benefit from more pocket parks, particularly some with fountains and statues. Our education looks manageable with all these new citizens, but traffic is another matter. We've built an additional highway connection south of the city, and it is starting to get backed up. We can help this somewhat by splitting it off so that all incoming traffic does not hit the same intersection. We can also widen it to provide dedicated turning lanes. We don't want to overthink this traffic, as much of it will settle down once people have moved in. These minor fixes will allow us to continue plopping buildings around our quiet, tiny plaza. But here, at this busy and complicated intersection, we have an opportunity to create another tiny plaza. We will fill the space in with a beautiful stone surface to make the plaza look unified on all sides of the intersection. We can add some round tree grates, which are common in Paris, and then use a small tree to make the plaza appear lush and calming despite the nearby traffic. I love adding these tiny little plazas as they allow us to unleash our creativity and imagine daily life in the city. It is also a reminder that life doesn't just happen inside buildings, but also in interstitial spaces. Using many complex angles in our road network provides us with extra opportunities to create tiny plazas. For example, this triangle corner is perfect for a fountain and a custom surface. We've passed 23,000 citizens and are making terrific progress on this arrondissement. Let's now turn from tiny plazas to the idea of a neighborhood center. In many of my builds, I like to create a town square, but a town square only works if you have a small town. When you have a larger city like Paris, then you won't have just one town square. Instead, you will have a neighborhood square or plaza that serves as the hub of a particular part of town. We are going to create that here in our first arrondissement, using this roundabout as the middle. Many times when I build, I use roundabouts as a network connection between parts of town, but a roundabout can also be the center of an area. For this neighborhood center, we have 5 roads that come together, much like a small star. Unlike our tiny residential plaza, this center is all about commercial activity. Of course, we need to continue paying attention to our traffic. We don't want cars turning left from the parking lane or making U-turns. Let's fix a similar problem as you head into our central roundabout. Traffic is flowing well enough in the center, even after bringing up our population. We are still keeping up with our education, which is great for now. So let's continue adding some of our large residential buildings to the small alleys, helping us grow this area rapidly. We will gradually work towards the neighborhood center, making this feel even more like the hub for citizens who live around here. The trick is to place the buildings around the circle. The 3 wide by 2 deep buildings fit well and allow us to create the look of a larger structure up against the roundabout. With nearly 28,000 residents, our city, Ile-de-Carrefour, is growing fast, and we need to keep an eye on traffic in places like this. We should also continue adding custom sidewalks where it makes sense using our surface tool. Just look at how busy our streets have become. Pedestrians are walking everywhere. The cobblestone surface makes this neighborhood center look a bit older, showing that it has historic roots. I think it would be good to add a second college over in this part of town before everything gets filled in. But we can do so much more to make this neighborhood sustainable. Our road network is extensive, but we have no public transportation. We will add a bus station on the edge of our first and second arrondissement. A small bus station will be perfect to create an entry point into Ile-de-Carrefour. At the moment, the only way to move to town is by private car or taxi. A bus system can help change that and significantly reduce incoming traffic. This station will have routes connecting to the south and to the east. We will give each line its own color to keep them distinct. Let's also add some local lines. One can circle the second arrondissement. The next can loop through the first arrondissement, including our little neighborhood center and our massive roundabout. These 4 lines will move so many citizens because we are taking them places they want to go and moving them into the city. Quick update on our leisure shows that we need another park. Placing it by our new college will make this side of the arrondissement an important destination. The bus lines are getting used, so let's continue adding more buildings. By this point, the neighborhood should have all the services and transport options it needs to sustain the population increase. We will continue placing office and mixed-use buildings along the wider roads and avenues. Medium density and low-rent buildings will be on the smaller alleys. The neighborhood is looking lovely, but you can see that traffic and high noise pollution are the main complaints. When building a dense city, it is nearly impossible to avoid either of these. The only thing to do is to keep going. Let's continue plopping buildings around our schools. We have 2 different elementary schools right next to each other, and it seems that our bus system is getting heavy use. This is great, as it should clear out a significant amount of cars from the road. As we expand our city, particularly into the next few episodes, we will need to prepare for even more citizens and an expansion of the bus network. Of course, if we really wanted to build a Parisian-inspired city, we would consider adding an underground metro. I am not sure we will ever get that big, as the goal is to build the area around L'Étoile, but perhaps that is something to consider. Let's add plenty of parks for leisure time and squeeze in buildings with both gray and orange roofs. Now, at over 29,000 residents, we are seeing a unique community emerge in this arrondissement. We can do something unique in this particular spot, make the park appear to straddle a building. It is time to start looking at the remaining empty places that are too small for structures. The little pocket parks will be perfect for creating some tiny plazas. A check on our bus system shows that things are still in good shape, and even the high traffic complaint has disappeared. Adding a few more low-rent buildings will help our demand for high density and provide cheaper options for residents. Property values and rents will increase as a city of this type grows, so we want to remember all of our citizens' needs. This has been such an extensive building project. I admit that when I started this, I thought the city would be much smaller and mainly focused on the area around L'Étoile. As you can see, it has grown much larger, and this is only the first 2 arrondissements. Ultimately, we will build out the 3rd, 4th, and 5th districts, each of which will need its own unique features. And we will achieve 100,000 citizens in the end. But enough of the future. In the present, we will fill more cobblestone surfaces on the little gaps and corners. Ile du Carrefour has a history going back hundreds of years, and that history shows through in both the buildings and the spaces. This is why we have focused so much time on the plazas, courtyards, and parks. The plazas give the city its culture and reflect the values of the people who live here. This is a pedestrian-friendly city that is trying to be less car-reliant. And from a historical point of view, much of the city was built long before cars even existed. So we shouldn't be surprised that the city caters to pedestrians. We have achieved today's goal, passing the 30,000 resident mark. We also reduced overall traffic with our first bus network and added some cozy neighborhood plazas and a district center. Ile du Carrefour is coming along quite nicely, but much more is yet to come. I would love it if you left a like and a comment, as that helps me know how I am doing. And while you are at it, please consider watching another video on my channel.